Hey y'all, this is Farley with Writer's Edge Podcast, and I am coming at you from the Pendleton Round-up this week. So this week's episode is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to take a little bit of a detour from our typical conversations that we have here on Writer's Edge. It is definitely the end of Roundup here at Pendleton. I have had the privilege of working for the sports medicine team here at Pendleton for 3 years now. And so I thought today we would just have a conversation about all things Pendleton. I've become a Pendleton junkie, I guess, of the Roundup. Not so much the whiskey, although I will drink Pendleton whiskey on occasion, especially when I am in Pendleton. So I just love the tradition and history and uniqueness of this place. So I just thought, after being here for 3 years and learning some of the insider things, and I thought, let's have a chat about Pendleton, of all the things we know and don't know, and kind of go from there, because it's a little bit of a different perspective to work the Roundup all week versus the typical contestant perspective, where they come in, compete, and then either head out again or go stay somewhere off grounds and then come back for the short go. So after listening and watching the committee work and all the hundreds of volunteers that they have here, it is quite a unique place. So Pendleton is 109 years old this year. Pendleton, for those of you who are not familiar with it, it is the only rodeo that for the PRCA that is competed on grass. So it is essentially the size of a football field with a dirt track around it. To give you a little bit more perspective, the barrel pattern is a 28 to 29 second pattern. It is the biggest pattern for the WPRA, and what happens is the barrels are on the dirt track, and the girls have to run across the grass to the barrels and then back again. In the timed events, it's a little bit different too. It's not just because of the grass. So what happens is the cattle are in a chute that are underneath the stands. The cowboy calls for the cattle, and there's a caller there that tells them when they're halfway up the hill, when they come by, and then it is up to the cowboy, as there's a pusher behind the calf or the steer, pushing them through the alley to the barrier. There's a little bit of an alley and a downhill slope to get to the grass for the timed events. So not only are those cowboys dealing with competing on grass, that they are also dealing with a shoot run situation. Although the cattle are still drawn like any other PRCA rodeo, they're run up the chute. So it is definitely some place where you let her buck. On the roughy side of things, the chutes are made of wood still. And I believe there are only 2 rodeos in the country that have wooden chutes here, and possibly Deadwood. I don't remember, but I do think it's a rodeo there in the Dakotas that also have wooden chutes. So some unique things here. It is typically a 4-hour performance here at the Roundup. It's how long it takes. There are numerous other things here that are unique. There are several Indian relay races in between events. During Pendleton Round-up week, there's also a large powwow. The Umatilla tribe has been part of the Roundup, I believe, since the inception of it, if not shortly thereafter. So it's very much a gathering of cowboys and Indians. They have an arena over called Happy Canyon where every night during the week there is a performance put on, a historical performance play that was written back in either the late 1800s or early 1900s that has not been changed. And it's something neat that you should see because it tells the history of this region of the country along with the history of the Roundup. And it starts with Lewis and Clark and goes all the way through the Western history through the 1800s, and it's a lot of fun. So back to the rodeo side of things. For the barrel racers, the Roundup is a long go and a short. Same thing for the rough stock riders, the long go and a short. And for the doggers, the calf ropers, the team ropers, the trippers, it's 2 goes and a short. So the beginning of the week, Monday and Tuesday, there is slack all day with a little bit of slack on Wednesday morning. Performances start at 1:15 Pacific time, starting Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Saturday is the short go, and it is Saturday as of this recording, and I'm standing out here looking at TP Village, which is on the north side of the arena. And as everything is starting to hustle and bustle and media is getting here, we're already here ready for the cowboys as they start coming in and getting ready to compete. There are wooden pins underneath the grandstands where the stock's already been sorted and ready for the day, and the rest of the stock is out in their pins. Other unique things to Pendleton is sports medicine wise, it's a very unique rodeo for us because of the grass, because different injuries happen. It rained earlier this week, so the grass got super slick and definitely had some horses slip, a few injuries here and there. We do a lot of preventative work here. We tape the majority of the steer wrestlers' ankles and provide them with heel pads in their taping if they wish to help with the concussion of the hard grass. That is very unique to here because for a lot of the doggers, will be the only place they ever get taped, with the exception of if they've been having ankle issues or whatnot. We'll tape some of the tie-down ropers as well as some of the steer ropers, depending upon what's going on. There'll be a few more hard falls and difficulty in the timed events here, especially in the tie-down roping and the steer roping. Any of the events where you have to get off to compete, there's a little more to it because of the grass. This is, we are about 2-3 weeks to the end of the regular season for the PRCA. So this is one of the last big money rodeos of the season. A lot of the cowboys and cowgirls that are on the bubble come here, and then they head back down to Albuquerque to kind of finish up with those few in Texas and New Mexico. They go to Albuquerque and then Abilene, Amarillo, Texarkana. There's a few more there towards the end of the month. So if you are, I highly recommend, whether you are competing or even if you don't compete on a professional level, you need to experience Pendleton as one of your bucket list rodeos to come and watch and see. For me, this is I get more excited about coming to Pendleton than I do the NFR for a couple of reasons. Because it's Pendleton. That's all you can say is it's Pendleton. It's like no other rodeo. You can't say it's like Calgary or Cheyenne or anything. It's just Pendleton. But Pendleton's a small town here in Eastern Oregon, and their economy goes around the Roundup week, and it's just great. There are campers everywhere. If you are coming in and you've never come, there are very few hotels in town, so you have to book them a year in advance, and they start booking hotels tomorrow on Sunday. The Sunday after Pendleton, they'll open up for the next year. There are lots of lots to put up a camper or bring your horse trailer and camp out. Even the Walmart parking lot gets full of campers, and there's a lot of empty lots here close to the arena where you can rent space. That is the one downfall of Pendleton, is it's hard to, it takes a little more coordination than like rolling up in Vegas or Houston and just getting a hotel anywhere. If you're going to fly in, the major airports are Boise, Idaho, and Portland, and they are both 3 hours from Pendleton. So it does take a little bit of more coordination. It's not typically a spur of the moment trip unless you have Oregon connections, I guess. Downtown shuts down during the week, and they have a big party at night, and Hamley's is here and they stay open. Their store stays open along with their bar. There's several bars downtown, a lot of after parties. There's a lot of parties during the performance with the Letterbuck Room and a couple of different bars here at the arena. That is how the purse for the next year for the Cowboys is raised, is through the bars here this week. There's a lot of history in the town of Pendleton. Other things to do besides the Roundup. There is the Pendleton Underground Tour. The Pendleton Underground Tour is downtown, where they take you underneath the town, where back in the 1800s, there was a whole town built underneath with the Chinese immigrants. And the neat thing, if you're a history buff, especially if you're a Western history buff, it goes all the way from Hopsing in the early 1800s, and then it takes you through all the technology that developed, because there's a ice cream freezer down there and a meat locker back in the early 1900s, and it spans from the 1800s, and the underground was used all the way through the 1940s. There's a speakeasy down there and other places down there. So it takes you through a wide range of history. And then that tour takes you out to the cozy rooms, which is above downtown, and takes you through that part of the history of Pendleton. I love Western history. I love rodeo history, and so for that, I eat all this up. I just love all the tradition and history with everything. When you sit back and observe, and there are so many directors and volunteers and committee members that make this production work. And there's a lot of history that goes with that, and a lot of tradition, what position you're in. And it's something that I think gets overlooked with when you kind of get in your own zone about competing and getting the next one. And it takes a lot of dedication from communities to put on these rodeos. And I think sometimes we need to take a little step back and appreciate the time and dedication it takes, because rodeo is in a very flux state, I believe, right now, and kind of a dangerous time on how all the changes are going to settle out and how this great sport is going to continue. So even if you're not at something as prestigious and historical as the Roundup, make sure and thank your local committee members, because without them, this sport would not be where it's at. We have a lot of songs. We have a lot of Crystal Dew songs about weekend heroes, weekend badges, and different things like that. But truly, the committees are what's keeping rodeo pushed forward and moving at the pace that it is. So besides the performance itself, which, like I said, is a 4-hour performance in an arena that seats 18,000. So Pendleton's a pretty small town, and so 18,000 descending upon it for a week really makes for some wild times. But you have the performance during the day. It happens, like I said, at 1:15. The cannon goes off, and we are ready to let her buck. And you also have a lot of girls. There's a lot of great shopping here. A lot of great shopping. On the side of the arena, there is Native American artisans are set up in their tents. So there's a lot of good jewelry shop in here, and just about anything you would want. So the shopping here is not as commercialized as other events. It's still very much a throwback to just great trade shows. And so that's what I really like about being a observer, for lack of a better word, for just being able to come and enjoy the experience. It's not nearly as commercialized as the NFR or other big rodeos. And so there's a lot of great shopping, a lot of local artisans come in, and it's just a nice place to come and watch and see and do and enjoy the history. And people in Oregon are so nice and gracious, and just want you to come and enjoy and have the best time ever. So that's a little bit of some thoughts and some random thoughts about the great Pendleton Round-up. As you sit here in the stands and watch, the last thing I'll touch on today is horsemanship. Whether it is whatever timed event it is, rodeo to me is always a test of horsemanship, because to go fast, it's a test of you've got to have a broke horse. You've got to have your horsemanship in there. Otherwise, it's not going to work on a consistent basis. However, here at Pendleton on the Green Mile, it will open up your flaws of horsemanship faster than anywhere else. And so to sit here and watch all these ropers and barrel racers for a couple years now, I'm like, your horsemanship, I feel like, has to be on another level to be competitive here at Pendleton. And that's what I think is great about this contest. And it's been here for 109 years, and we'll be going into the 110th roundup next year. So it's just a fabulous event. So if you haven't come out, put it on your bucket list, make plans, make it your vacation. It's a nice break from the humidity of the South, typically, and it's just a great place to be. So I hope you enjoyed Random Thoughts of the Pendleton Roundup today. It's a little bit of a diversion from our typical conversations, but I think it's an important one and one that I like to talk about. So there you have it from Pendleton, Oregon. As they say here, let her buck. Thank you for listening to the Rider's Edge podcast today. We appreciate your time and attention. Thank you for always helping us move the conversation forward. If you liked today's podcast, please help us keep the conversations going by subscribing to this podcast, and consider leaving us a review so others can find us and join in on the conversations. You can also find more information by checking us out on our social media channels, including Facebook at Rider's Edge Therapy and Wellness, Instagram at Rider's Edge Therapy, and our website, www.ridersedgetherapy.com. It is there that you can book a consult for either you or your horse. Thank you, and as always, we will see you down the road.